Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Toastmasters International Let's Talk Holiday Talk webinar. We are delighted to have you with us today. My name is Danielle Mitchell, and I'm the Club Quality and Member Support Director at Toastmasters, which is just a fancy way of saying I work with the teams that ensure Toastmasters members and club officers all over the world get the answers and support they need. So that's my exhilarating party conversation starter. Before you meet our moderator and panelists, I wanted to take a few minutes to set the stage for our time together. For most of the webinar, we will be watching a live discussion between members of our expert panel. As we learn together, you may think of a question you'd like to ask. Please submit your questions using the Q&A pane, and towards the end of the webinar, we will bring many of those questions into the conversation. With so many attendees, however, we may not be able to answer all the questions, but we will do our best. So thank you in advance for your patience and understanding. While you will not be able to speak aloud, we encourage you to use the chat feature to share where you are joining from and talk with one another throughout the webinar. We appreciate you remembering to be polite and courteous to your fellow attendees. Also, please keep in mind that our team is focused on answering questions posted in the Q&A pane and not in the chat. This webinar is being recorded, and you will receive an email in a few days with a link to the recording. And one more thing before I hand off the webinar to our moderator to get this party started, we have 3 quick questions to help all of us gauge where we are at with our holiday talk. Please take a moment to answer the questions using the polling feature you see on your screen. That should come up momentarily. There you go. Question 1. It's party time and someone has asked you to step up and make an impromptu toast. How do you react? You have 3 options. I see lots of people voting. This is very exciting. We'll leave the poll open for a few more seconds for you. This is so many votes, hundreds and hundreds of votes. All right, looks like the poll ended. Over a majority, 58% of you picked number 2. My stomach is in knots, but okay, I'll step up and give it a try. That's awesome. All right, we'll go on to the next question. Question 2, do you typically feel awkward at a family holiday party? Those can be stressful or really exciting, or both. I see lots of votes, hundreds of votes coming in. We'll close the poll in a few seconds. All right, polls are closed. Another overwhelming 67% of you said no. That's great. You're feeling pretty comfortable at those family holiday parties. We have one more question for you. We'll post it. All right, question 3, a little similar. Do you typically feel awkward at work-related holiday parties? Those can be very different. Unless you work with your family, then it might be the same thing. Lots of votes coming in. We'll close it here in a second. Well, it's pretty close. All right, poll is ended. 59% of you, so more than half, said yes, you do typically feel awkward at work-related parties. Hopefully we'll get some tips today to help us with those parties. Thank you all so much for participating in the poll today. I appreciate all your answers. Now, I have the honor of introducing our moderator, Natanya Walker. Natanya is the founder and CEO of the WAR Group. a training and performance coaching firm dedicated to helping directors, managers, and emerging leaders speak better, lead better, collaborate better, and believe in themselves better. She is also a past region advisor for Toastmasters Region 8 and the 2017-2018 District Director for District 44. Natanya was additionally honored as the 2015 Toastmaster of the Year. Thank you so much for being with us today, Natanya. Over to you.
Oh, thank you, Danielle. I'm happy to be here, and I'm also happy to introduce our panel experts. Our first panelist is Michael Varma. Michael is the author of Tasteful Toast. He's a master magician and an award-winning instructor who reveals trade secrets about how to achieve success in books, educational programs, and workshops. He's also a 3-time winner of the last Toastmasters standing joke telling contest. And he encourages everyone, you and me, to make sure we have a clean joke on hand at all times. And that's just the first tip. And the webinar is just getting started. Our second panel expert is Diane Wingelen. Diane is the owner of Virtual Speech Coach, where she coaches subject matter experts on how to communicate with clarity and with confidence. Since 2011, Diane has been speaking for organizations that want to help their people have better, more profitable conversations and presentations. Now, also, in Diane's spare times, she spends it helping our beloved Toastmasters International. Well, that's our panelists. Now, let's get down to some holiday talk. Here's my first question, Diane and Michael. I'd like to know from each one of you, what is the best celebration or event you've been to? Tell us why. What made it so great? Let's start with you, Diane.
Well, recently, it was actually a small conference with only about 13 attendees. And what made it so great was that we ate together and could chat in non-facilitated discussion, because that's not something we've had a lot of opportunity to do, because in Zoom, it's really hard to have those side conversations or to go very deep because everybody is listening. But if you have good food, good company, conversation can really go deeper than you can ever do really online. Maybe you could do it in breakout rooms, but it was so fun just to talk to people.
Yeah, that makes a difference. It's something about conversing. Michael, tell us about your best event.
Well, actually, I think I had two recently. First one was we hosted a game night for Halloween at our own house. And that was fun, as Diane was mentioning. It was great to get together with people in person, have those side conversations, laugh and joke and have a good old time. And that was fun because we ate and we played games and did all the things that we tried to do over Zoom. Well, actually, we did it over Zoom. It was fun, but then it became even more fun because you're revisiting the in-person events. And then the second one was we stepped up a level at work. We had a get together with let's see, my first one, the holiday one, was about 8 people. This one, we had about 24, 25 people, and it was a dinner time. So we got to go from table to table and sit down and chat with everybody and have, again, candid conversations about anything and everything.
That's interesting. One thing I heard in common, every event, there was a table and there was food.
Yes.
Some kind of way that makes for good talk, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so here's another question for you. People have been isolated. I mean, some people have really been in for a while due to the pandemic, and they're just starting to get out. What advice do you have for them to, let's say, reinvigorate their social side? And I'm not talking about, the swiping side, social interaction. I'm talking about the face-to-face social interactions. How would they invigorate those? Michael, we'll start with you.
Okay, well, everything revolves around food. Not everything revolves around food, but you can start with getting together with coffee or tea, getting a donut, do a one-on-one with somebody, go to lunch with somebody, and that way you have a small group to start with. And then after that, it's like, okay, well, let's go to the movies, or let's get together with 4 people, or dinner with 4 or 6 people. That's the simplest and easiest way to re-engage and start those social conversations. Diane, what do you think?
I would echo what you are saying, to start small, and you should decide on your own boundaries that you're comfortable with. And it's okay to be honest about your needs, your comfort level. Offer grace to people who maybe feel differently than you. And it's okay if things are a little awkward. Some people may not be ready for those big bear hugs yet.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. I was just about to say that because I'm a hugger. So people are like, hey, good to see you. I'm gonna hug. My wife, not so much. She's like, it's okay. Pandemic was okay. I like the whole social distancing. So it is and opposites attract. So it works out well for us. But it is wonderful to find out and give the people that space that they need.
Yeah, that's true. Talking about pandemics and hugs, it makes me think about the difference between events a few years ago and events now. I mean, whether you're planning or you're attending an event, they're different. So let's start with the planning. Let's just say you're planning an event now and you need to prep. I want to know what's different now than a few years ago, and what would you say are the pros and cons? So let's talk planning. Diane, can you take that one?
Well, I would say your house, your rules.
Ha.
So you are responsible for your guest safety at your home. And if you have any COVID protocols, such as masks, testing, vaccination, be upfront with that. And I don't know too many people who go to the extent of requiring testing, but if you do, you should offer to pay for it. And don't pressure people to attend if they're not comfortable. Don't be judgy. And perhaps have some hand sanitizer on hand, maybe masks for people who want them. And, just have good party etiquette too. Maybe have a greeter at the door that lets people know the lay of the land and introduce people, those kinds of things.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I also think about, we used to send out a lot of invitations. And some of this is pandemic, some of it's just change of times, right? Now it seems like sending out e-bites have gotten pretty popular. That's another change, and part of that preparation, thinking through who the audience is. I also think it's a good idea to think about the mix of people when you're having holiday parties and events and planning those. How do you mix certain people with other people to create great dialogue and conversations? So Michael, here's one for you. Same thing. We're still coming out of this pandemic and things have changed, but now you are preparing to go to an event. As a matter of fact, Diane's hosting the event. You're planning to go. What would you do to prepare for this event?
I agree with what Diane was talking about. It's good to know what the rules are. In fact, I think, Diane, you're going on a cruise, a fabulous cruise, and you have to get tested for COVID beforehand. So as long as you know what those rules are, then it makes you comfortable. You can then apply the rules or decide, yeah, I'm not going to go to that party because it doesn't fit my realm. But then as an attendee, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to know what the rules are, find out what's good. And then I'm a fan of favorites. Plan for your favorite, your joke, your toast, your questions, so that you know that you're comfortable and you know what you can do and bring to the party. You get to decide what you want to do. You can be a wallflower, or you can be the life of the party, or something in between. That's your choice. I
Wow.
personally, what was that?
No, I was just thinking, wow, when you said plan and just, you own it, right? It's your event. You're going to be there and you have to decide how you're going to show up and what you want from it.
Exactly. Sometimes people are like, I went to this party, I didn't have any fun. Well, whose fault is that? Well, it could be, you could blame the host or you play the victim. It's like, no. If you want to go there and have some fun, well, then you get to decide how much interaction you're going to do. And a lot of times people are like, well, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to start a conversation. I personally like the highlights game. And it's something like, well, today, what did you do today? I had a highlight. I was on a webinar today. Now, it doesn't have to be that large. It can be something simple. I got up at time to feed my cat. That's great. What'd you do? And then somebody's going to reciprocate some highlight from their day. It could be a work thing, it could be a personal thing. They did a personal project. And before you know it, you're already just starting a conversation. So I like the highlights game.
Yeah, I like that too. Diane, anything to add here?
Well, just be a good guest if you're attending. And there are some cultural differences, but in general, you want to RSVP, let them know that you're coming, and then show up on time, or at least not more than a few minutes late. And don't be glued to your phone, have conversation. Don't bring extra people like some relatives have done when they've come to my house, or a pet. Then usually a hostess gift is nice: flowers, chocolate, wine, whatever is appropriate in your culture. Don't expect them to use it right away. I would say, even though it's really tempting, don't snoop in their house. Don't open up that medicine cabinet, and be respectful of people's privacy also by not posting video or pictures without getting someone's permission. And finally, don't be the last one to leave, or the first if you can help it, and offer to help clean up as might be appropriate. You will be a guest that will be invited to many parties if you have good guest etiquette.
You're a fabulous guest. You can come on over to my party anytime. That's fabulous.
I love it. I love it. I'll add to that. If it's a work event, say, it wouldn't hurt to check out the participants. Who's attending this event? Go Google them, look them up on LinkedIn, check out their profile. Maybe it's some executives or people you would love to meet or get to know. You can ask someone at the party to introduce you. And those are things that you can plan in advance. Find a buddy to go with you. That's always good, because that buddy can make the introductions, and you'll have someone on your side. All right, so, go ahead, Michael. Okay. Yeah.
I did the same thing on both of you, because I figured out who's the moderator and who's the panelist. I want to know who you are, because other than that, you're just a brand new face. And Diane, you just had a recent article in Toastmasters magazine, right? It was all about.
I did. It's 7 tips to brush up on your small talk. And I don't know if I can put it in the chat, because let me see. Can I send it to everyone? Oh, I don't see how I can do that, but I'll tell you what, I'm sure the Toastmaster host can put that article in the link in the chat so that people can get that article, but it's in this month's Toastmaster magazine.
And it's a good one, I might add. So make sure you go there. Absolutely.
I want to add on what you said, Tanya, in terms of doing a little bit of investigation on people. LinkedIn is fine. Their public websites are fine. But if you start digging into like Pinterest, Instagram, if you dig too deep and you bring up things that they're like, how do you know that? Then it gets creepy. So if it's on LinkedIn, if it's on their public website, that's good, but don't dig too deep. It's okay if you know those things, just don't mention them.
Yeah. I think definitely don't bring them up. So speaking of conversation, now during events, making conversation is like art. You got to figure out how to join in the conversation, how to avoid a few scary or restricted topics. And then you've got to figure out how to leave when the conversation is just too much. Speaking of that, what tips do you have? Let's just say starting with entering into an event and engaging in small talk. What'd you say, Michael?
Oh, well, we have to go to Diane, because this is where you highlight your article, right?
All
Use
right.
those and all those acronyms. I read that article. Fabulous.
Go for it, Diane.
Oh, I'm going to have to like scroll to my article. I had an acronym. It was CAA, and that's basically to comment on something you can observe, something you have in common, then ask an open-ended question, listen to their response, affirm, and add. So the hardest part is just getting started, and you can simply comment on something that you both observe or that you have in common. Maybe you're looking at the food spread and you might be sampling the shrimp. You could simply say, the shrimp is fantastic. What looks good to you? And then see what they say. And then you might say, oh yeah, the desserts are something I'm looking forward to. And then you can add and maybe talk about my favorite dessert is creme brulee. So you can just kind of go back and forth. It's a little bit like a game of catch. You ask, you listen, you add. They might ask. Some people don't ask very many questions. And so you have to kind of do a little dance to figure out the balance, because it probably won't be 50-50. But I will touch on exiting a conversation, because you mentioned that. And sometimes there could be a lot of reasons you might want to exit. Maybe you want to talk to somebody else. Maybe you're uncomfortable with the conversation. So one exit, if you can pull it off, is to simply introduce someone else. Maybe snag someone nearby and say, Joe, I would like you to meet Susan, and maybe say why they might want to know each other, and then get them talking. And it's like, I'll let you two talk and you can just leave. Or if you're talking and there's no one nearby to snag, you could have some sort of positive recap on the conversation. It's been great hearing about your business. Please excuse me, I need to whatever. I mean, you could have almost any reason. I need to catch my friend before she leaves. I need to use the restroom, whatever. So you can just say, please excuse me, and then you can go.
I like that. I like that. So what happens when lots of people know you? You show up at an event, and maybe somebody like you, Diana, you've written an article, it's in the magazine, so you'll go to an event and everybody knows you, but you don't remember their name. How do you handle that sticky situation?
Well, that can be awkward. If I happen to be at an event and the person hasn't talked to me yet, I will ask somebody else. I am like forgetting their name. What is their name? So I will ask their name, and then I will, if they don't come up to me and say my name, I will introduce myself. It's like, hi, I'm Diane Windingland. And they will almost automatically say who they are. And if you have to, you could admit, your face is so very familiar, and I'm trying to get better at knowing names, but your name has escaped me. Please help me remember your name. Just be honest. I mean, if you're older, you could make, although I don't know if this would be politically correct anymore, you could make a joke about having a senior moment or make light of it. Like, I've been so busy, I haven't been able to remember anything.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't get too upset about it. In other words, it happens to everybody.
Exactly. One that I use is I'll chat for a minute and then I'll introduce them to someone else. Have you met? And then that person says, no, hi, and then they introduce, and I go, oh yeah, that's who that is, right? So I just allow them to introduce themselves. So Michael, here's another one. I heard CAA. That was the tip that Diane gave. It was was it confirm, or what was the first one? It was confirm. Comment,
ask, affirm, and add.
And add. So this whole asking notion, you don't necessarily at the party need to be the one answering all the questions. I think the person who's asking the questions is pretty much in control, because they have the opportunity to listen. What's your take on question asking during events, be it a holiday event with family or in the office?
I agree with all the comments that Diane mentioned, as well as what you're talking about, Natanya, for what questions do you ask? And it's kind of like table topics in Toastmasters. If you're not familiar with table topics, that's where you're asked an impromptu question, and then your job is to answer that question. You get practice in that, answering in within a minute or two. So I treat many parties like table topics, where I'm going to ask them questions. Now, my goal is not to trick them or ask them a tricky question or something that makes them really think. I'm going to start with the easiest ones, your favorites. My favorite part, we're at a holiday party. This is my favorite holiday party. Or my favorite holiday party is 4th of July, because I love the fireworks and the barbecue food. That's great. What's your favorite party? Or what's your favorite holiday party? You pick that party. It may not be that one, or you say, I remember, because that puts that person in a great mood, because they're like, oh yeah, we went to this party and this happened, and they showed this movie, or they played this game, and which leads you on to, oh, what is that game? Can you explain that game to me? Can we play that here? So I always go back to favorites. What is your favorite party? Or what is your favorite day of the week? Or what is your favorite food? If you're looking at desserts, like, oh, there's the cheesecake there. I know, Diane, you mentioned food. I'm already thinking about food. And it's so early in the morning. But I'd say, oh, I love cheesecake. I'm a cheesecake snob, if I must say. What's your favorite dessert? And why is it your favorite dessert? And that way you're going from a yes, no question or a quick answer, and then you can ask the why. And that becomes a follow-up question. It becomes natural and normal and relaxing. And before you know it, they're going to ask you another question and they're going to reciprocate. Just like when you're introducing yourself, when you go into a group of people and you're like, well, I don't know them. How do you introduce yourself? You can say, hi, my name is Michael. And then you've introduced yourself and they know your name and they're going to reciprocate. If you say your first name, they're going to give their first name. If you say, hi, I'm Michael Varma, they're going to reciprocate, give their first and last name as well. So, and I did want to touch on one thing you said. Well, what do you do if you forget somebody's name? So I'm a professional magician, so I go to a lot of parties. I see a lot of people. I might give a magic show to 100 people. They all know me. I don't know them, but they think I do because we've created that type of rapport. So I come back and said, my head's still in the show. Can you remind me your name? That's it. My head is somewhere else. I'm still at work or I'm thinking about something else. Can you remind me of your name? And it's very honest, straightforward. And then you have the information. You can continue on your conversation. Sorry, I jumped around there. There's several different things that are going through my mind going, why do you get it all? Give us as many tips as possible.
Well, look, that's what we want to do. We want to chunk this because there is a lot to cover during events. Hey, here's a big one. Before I jump, I've got another topic I want to talk about, but here's a big one while we're talking about tips. We know that words are important, but that's only 17% of communication. There's a whole lot more going on with body language and with tone. So how does communication play in, and that's non-verbal communication, play in at holiday events? Anybody want to take that?
Sure, I'll take it. Your nonverbal communication can really express how interested you are, how friendly you are. So I would say you generally want to have a pleasant expression on your face when someone is talking and you're listening. And a pleasant expression isn't exactly neutral, because my neutral expression looks like, and as I've gotten older, it's gotten like meaner looking. So I kind of go for the whole Mona Lisa vibe. And then I will smile when they say something that, makes me happy. I will nod in agreement or affirming that I'm understanding them. I will try not to have crossed arms that could look like I'm being closed off, and just maybe even lean in a little bit and make eye contact that's appropriate for your culture. I tend to make a lot of eye contact when I'm talking and when I'm listening, and don't look at your phone. I think phones can be they can really put people off. If you're always looking at your phone or looking at text, like they're not as important as this other person or thing on your phone. So maybe put your phone away, maybe put it on vibrate, and don't look at it too much unless you're going to take a selfie with someone else and make them feel special, and you'll text it to them later.
Yeah, good advice. I like that. Michael, you want to add something?
Yeah, I'll jump in there as well.
Yeah.
Then either as an attendee or as a host, it's not your job to force them to have a good time. So if somebody's sitting on the couch like this with their arms crossed, okay, they got something going on. They may have had a really bad day and they're trying to adjust it and unwind. So again, it's not your job to make them have a good time. You can stop by and say, hey, is everything okay? And then that's an open-ended question that they're going to say, yeah, well, it's a yes, no, but yes, and they might unload and then they're going to feel better. Or it's like, oh no, I'm just okay. The other option is, or when you see somebody on their phone, you can always engage them in the conversation. Say, oh, that's really interesting. Is there something really good there? Can I see? Or they say, oh, no, I just posted on Instagram. Oh, okay, great. Go ahead and do it. And then you can either leave or join them. Again, it's your decision if you want to be that wallflower or if you want to be super involved with everybody or what's going on. So, and then I forgot the question. I was going through all the things that I was wanting to mention.
Remembering things from yesterday and starting to bring them in. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, there is that.
For me, it's be mindful. The big thing is to be mindful of your body language at all times. No one may be talking to you, but you could be sending a vibe unintended to, it may not be your intent, but you may be sending a message with your body, the way you're standing, to Diane's point about facial expression. Just be mindful of how you're communicating in these events, and be intentional. Be intentional. If you want to show up friendly, if you want to be engaging, if you want to be seen as someone who is ready for the next level, then look that way. For example, I always say at work events, it doesn't matter whether you're in a break room or it's a holiday event or you're actually in a presentation, you're always interviewing for something. You don't know what, and you may not know when you're going to get the job, but people do observe you. So in settings like this, if you're looking to go to the next level, oftentimes people want to know how you handle yourself in social settings, not to add pressure to you, but you should be mindful of how you show up, whether you get too loud and obnoxious or whether you're just too soft and no one can hear you. Be mindful so that you're intentional about that. All right, let's shift. Here's the other question I wanted to ask. So you're at a work-related social event, and out of nowhere, unexpectedly, you're presented with an award, and everybody's coaxing you to go up, say something, say something. How do you prepare in the moment to deliver a really meaningful and heartfelt message without falling apart, of course? Diane, what do you think?
Well, I think you want to go up there with excitement. Don't be all like, oh, I shouldn't have gotten this, looking down. Go up there. You're excited. You're being honored. Show that you're happy, but don't make it all about you. Thank people. Thank the organization. Say that it is an honor to receive this award. You might have a story of impact where how the organization has made an impact and you're honored to be part of that. And then I would close again with thanks. I'd start with thanks and I'd close with thanks, thanking for the organization's work and the impact that it makes. Keep it short and sweet, probably under 2 minutes.
Good advice. Michael, what do you think?
I agree on all those comments. I was typing up my notes here, writing notes. It's the 3 B's: be brief, be bold, be done. That's it. You get up there, you're being brief, and you want to, as Diana was saying, you're thanking everybody. You thank the person, you thank the organization, and you thank the people that helped you to get there. Because if you think, oh, it was all me, it might have been, probably not. There's always somebody there to help you along the way. So you go around the room and then you look at the award. There's usually an inscription. It's thank you for your dedicated service. It's like that, you can respond to that. So you're responding to each person, the person that gave you the award, the organization, and then the award itself. What is it about? And then, as Diane said, you just say thank you, and then you're done. Be brief, be bold, be done. You have that gentle spotlight on you, and then you shine that spotlight back on the organization.
I like that. And I really like that, going back to whatever the inscription is on that award. I think that may be a miss for me. So I'll have to remember that one to particularly speak to that in addition to the people.
Sometimes they do have an inscription. Sometimes it's just your name. And then if it's just your name, it's okay, well, it's not just me. You have to invert it and flip it around. So if they have that inscription, you can read the inscription too. That eats up more time. It's an old Toastmaster trick, like you repeat the table topics question. You can say, this is what it says. Wow. And then how does that make you feel? It's like, it wasn't me just by myself. It was everybody. It was my team, my department, my parents for giving birth to me. It's not the whole Academy Awards, but along those lines. So that gives you at least 3 or 4 different tips of how to respond to an impromptu award.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Okay, so we'll flip from receiving an award. Now you're asked to give a toast. You're at an event. It could be a family event, a work event, maybe in your community even, and you've got to figure out what to say, how to say it, how long to say. I mean, the list could go on and on. So tell me, or tell us, what tips do you have for giving a toast?
Okay, well, I'll jump in with this one because I've written several books, and one is Tasteful Toasts. So tastefultoast.com. Right there are several toasts that are posted. I'm a fan of, well, jokes in general, but rhymes or limericks that are positive or tasteful, hence tasteful toasts. There's several jokes or toasts right there. Whether you are going to prepare for it, I did have these way back when, these little business cards. I place these toasts on the cards. They're no more than 6 lines long. You could read the toast there, or nowadays everybody has their cell phone. You can just take your cell phone and read off that. So as far as preparing, if you know that you're going to give that toast, you go through the basics of, first you introduce yourself so people know who you are and how you're related to the person that you're going to toast. And then you talk about that person. There's several articles on Toastmasters. There's how to give a toast in 10 minutes or less, or how to write a tasteful toast in 10 minutes or less, that just walks you through the steps of, you're talking about the person and then what they did to receive the award. And then you bring them up on stage, and then it's their turn to give their impromptu or their table topics type toast. And I'll pause there and toss it over to Diane, because Diane, I know you've got some tips too.
My first tip would be to get your book, Michael, on tasteful toasts, because I haven't read a book on toast, although I do have a little bit of a format when giving a toast. First of all, remember that a toast is not a roast. You don't want to embarrass or speak badly about the person you're toasting. And the focus should be on them, not really you. So I say format it just like a speech, a beginning, a middle, an end. A beginning could be a little bit of a hook and what your connection to the toasty is. For example, John is my older brother. And when I was little, I was his tormentor. And then in the middle, you might have a story. One day, I knew my big brother was someone I could count on, blah, 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 blah. And then you might end, let's raise our glasses to John, the man we can count on. Cheers. Something like that. A beginning, maybe a little positive story, and then an end that includes the person's name and a toast or cheers or something like that. I would say that not more than 2 to 3 minutes would you need for a toast, and that notes are totally okay, whether they're on your phone or on a little card that you read.
I like that. That's really good advice from both of you. Now, there was a word that came up, you said earlier in our conversation, Diane, and the word was giving other people grace. Let's talk a little bit about giving yourself grace, because oftentimes when we're having conversations or in tricky situations like having to make small talk or in places where we don't know a lot of people, we feel like we might blunder or something may not go well. How should we treat ourselves when maybe we call someone the wrong name or talk about something out of the blue and everyone looks at us weirdly? How do you handle that? What would you offer to the audience to really be gentle and kind with themselves when that happens?
Run and hide in the bathroom. No, just kidding.
I wasn't expecting that, Diane.
Well, just real quick story. I kind of did that once when I was in my 20s and at a networking event. This was the 80s. And when big hair, loud eye makeup, etc., big shoulder pads were in. And I wanted to so make a good impression that when it was my turn to talk, I stood up and they were all just staring at me like I had 3 heads or something. And so when it was over, I just left. And I looked in my rearview mirror and I knew why they were staring at me. And that was because I'm trying out my new eye makeup. I'd only done it on one eye and it looked really, really weird. I thought I must have gotten, something must have happened in between before I got to the other eye. But I would have handled that completely differently now that I've gotten older. I probably would have stopped in the restroom and noticed it and then gone back in and been like, hey, we all screw up. I only did one eye. Isn't that funny? I would make something that would kill confidence when I was 20 into something where I would just be confident right through it and make fun of myself.
You're a fashion icon ahead of your time. Oh my gosh, trendsetter right there. All you need to Instagram it a couple times. Perfect.
Oh, I love that. I love it. It's so important, though, that we are kind and gentle to ourselves when those things happen. Find a way to have a little humor, laugh at yourself, and I think that's part of the best kindness. Hey, let's jump into this question. Every event, while we'd love to be face-to-face, that's not the case. Sometimes we have to have online events, whether it's even with our home, our family, because they're in a different state, or maybe you work with a team that's not local, and to be able to get together, you need to do it online. What are some tips to have really good, fun, engaging events, holiday events online?
Well, we have to start with the virtual speech coach. Go for it, Diane.
Well, I think you can replicate some aspects of an in-person event within an environment like Zoom, especially if you use breakout rooms. You might have some little discussion questions just to get people going, and have rooms of 2 or 3 people and let them just chat for a while. And maybe it'll be like speed dating, where you switch it up after every few minutes, and they can make connections. That's very difficult to do within a large group. You can even plan some fun activities where you have would you rather questions. Would you rather swim in a bowl of gravy or swim in a dish of cranberry sauce, and just see where it goes from there. So make it fun, allow some time for individual discussion. What are your ideas, Michael?
Well, first of all, for body gestures, I see my cat is ignoring us, and she did appear on camera, so let me place her towards camera. That's Ginger. Now you're in the shot now. Okay, she feels better. On Zoom, if you don't know how to do breakout questions, you can always do what I like to do, is the daisy chain, where if you got 6 or 10 people online, you start a question. So I'll ask Diane, then Diane asks somebody else. So that way everybody gets involved. You ask a question and you give them prompters, or you can email them a list of questions, and then they have the list of questions asked, and then they get to pick the person they want to be involved. And we've done that in Toastmasters meetings, that we would do a rotating table topic. So as soon as one person finishes, they pick the next person. So it becomes impromptu, and you're like, oh, okay, I didn't know I was going to go. That's the point. And then you get to calm your heart down, and then you get to answer that question.
I like that. Great advice, you two. Great advice. I see Danielle's back. Danielle?
Yes, thank you all for sharing your insights. And I'm so excited to see Ginger. Now I'm not only ready to enjoy the holiday food, but I'm better equipped to confidently handle those holiday conversations. Next, we're going to shift to the question and answer part of our webinar and find out what else our audience wants to know. We received some terrific questions from our attendees, so we'll jump right on in. First question is for you, Natanya. Peter wants to know, what do you recommend if you're feeling lonely during the holidays?
Join Toastmasters. Oh, that's a great question, Pierre. Honestly, I do mean that, because there are Toastmasters clubs all around the world with people who are conversationalists, who will encourage you, who will support you, and the likes. And they host holiday events. Also, I say, find a friend, find a buddy, find a neighbor. If you're lonely, there's someone out there just like you. It's a matter of connecting with those people who are like-minded. But join a group. Toastmasters is where I recommend. Again, we're around the world, but don't be alone. If you're lonely during the holidays, find someone. And if you need help, just Google any of your friends and they'll help you find someone. Danielle?
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Natanya. Great tips. Could also even volunteer at a shelter if that's in your area. A lot of great ways to find people and give back. Next question is for you, Michael. Martin wants to know, what advice do you have to best deal with those uncomfortable political discussions that can occur at holiday parties or family get-togethers?
Ooh, yeah, those can be very awkward. Thank you, Martin. Good question. They usually say you don't talk about sex, politics, religion, because they can be volatile, simply because people get very passionate about it. You can redirect the conversation, or you could have that as a side conversation. Usually when I've come across those situations, oh, that is great. This party is about the holidays, or we're here to honor so-and-so, or it's Natanya's birthday. You redirect it to that particular group or whatever that event is. Say, I want to focus on this. And you ask them, well, how do you know Natanya? Or how did you get to know Danielle? That way you're redirecting, saying, that is all good information. Thanks so much. Or I do recall, I remember once I was getting into one of those conversations and say, I admit that I do not have enough information on both sides of the argument to have an intelligent conversation. I prefer to talk about, and then we change the subject. Most people will honor and respect that answer. So Danielle?
Great, Michael. I love that last one. I'm going to use that next time that question comes up. All right, Diane, next question for you. I like this question. It's one I have. Rita asks, for those of us with social anxiety and are attending an event solo, how would you suggest to start a conversation? And are there any calming techniques if discomfort sets in?
Great. I don't have social anxiety, so I'm going to try to imagine this. But I would say you don't need to barrel into a conversation. I probably would get the lay of the land a little bit, like, maybe walk around, kind of see who's more extroverted, maybe someone you might like to meet, grab some food. And then I probably would pick someone that I saw as an extrovert because I know I could get them talking and I would not have to carry the conversational ball. So I'd get going with them, and they're probably good at conversation. So they will probably also weave in some easy questions for me. And if I started to feel anxiety, I would probably take a breath, because it's really easy to get all tight and all like flustered. Sometimes you just need to take a breath, take a cleansing breath, and know that it's going to be okay, that people are there because they want to have fun, they want to get to know you, and they're not going to really judge you. More people are worried about themselves than they think about other people. So those would be my tips.
Wonderful. Thank you, Diane. Great tips. I'm usually the one that looks to find the cat or dog at the party, and I just go hang out with them all night, but then I don't get to really meet anyone. Great tips for us. Next question to Tanya. This is from Karen. What do you do if there is an argument that takes place during a party?
Oh, that's a tough one, Karen. All right, what do you do if an argument takes place? First, you try to calm everyone down. I think that's the big thing. And this is really important these days because we live in such a volatile time where arguments can easily escalate into something really big. I think the first thing is, if you're not comfortable calming the group, find the host or the hostess and bring it to their attention, make them aware of what's happening so that they can take charge of that situation, but certainly make someone aware, try to, not egg on anyone else, but rather calm everyone down, whether it's by moving on and shifting to a different room so that, whoever's arguing can deal with it. But anything you can do to de-escalate would be important. First of all, starting with the host or hostess, making them aware so that they can take the proper measures.
Thank you, Natanya. Wonderful advice. Uncomfortable situation for sure. All right, next question, Michael. This is from Arul Liban. When I try to break the ice in a social gathering by cracking a joke and no one laughs, embarrassing, I am completely thrown off. Making the next conversation with anyone becomes really hard. How do I stage a comeback in this scenario?
Oh, that is great. In fact, we had talked about that earlier. I worked with Johnny Carson once upon a time, and his biggest thing, and you can go back in all his videotapes, sometimes the jokes land and he's like, ah, that's great. But when they don't, he's like, whoa, that did not work out well. And you're right, do not tell that joke again. You know, something as simple as that, and comics do that right now. I use that one frequently. And then you admit the moment and say, oh, that didn't work. That's awkward. How do you get out of an awkward situation? And you toss it back to the group. And they might go, oh, I don't know. It's like, do you tell another joke? And they're like, no, which makes it funny all over again. Say, okay, well, all right, that one bombed. So the biggest thing is to admit it, know that it happened. It's just like when you're teaching a class, and we use this as an example, we were talking about it before, that I gave a presentation and the air conditioning went out. It's the middle of summer. It is more than 90 degrees in the room. What do? Well, I was in a coat and tie, so I'm loosening my coat, and I'm taking off my coat and loosening my tie and say, yes, the air conditioning went out. The maintenance people have been called. So you've acknowledged it. Everybody knows that it's happened. Yeah. And the air conditioning can be fixed, and then they move on. So the same thing, if you tell a bad joke or it lands just really bad, you say, okay, I won't tell that one again. All right, no, take the temperature of the room. And then you come back and you just move on after you acknowledge it. Good question. That does happen, and dare I say happens a lot.
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Michael. All right, Diane. Anonymous asks, how do you handle constant interrupters?
Oh, they're
Like
very
me?
annoying.
Oh, like me?
Yeah, they can be very annoying, and I would handle it in stages. The first time I would just smile and say, oh, I wasn't quite done yet. I might even do that a second time. And the third time I would say, it's my turn to speak. Could I have a moment here without interruption? Now, I know that way may not be popular with other people, but I find being upfront, but being nice about it is usually the way to go. What often will happen is I see it happening to someone else. Maybe I'll be in a group of 4 people, and one person is completely monopolizing the whole conversation. Well, when they take a breath, I will interrupt them and say, excuse me, I would love to hear what Joe has to say on this. And I'll try to put it over to somebody else.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Diane. All right, Natanya, another question for you from Anubin. How can I be more confident in my day-to-day conversations?
How can you be more confident in your day-to-day conversations? Just relax. Just really relax. That's the first thing. I love the whole cleansing breath. You know, that's step one. Just breathe and relax. The second thing is think about, I always like questions. You know, when you ask someone, for example, how's your day going? And they go, oh, I just got back from Aruba. It's good. Well, you just asked how their day was going. You didn't ask them where they were. Right. And all of a sudden, they'll tell you what they want to talk about. So then you just start with Aruba. So how was Aruba? Tell me about it. What went on? Who did you visit? What happened? Did you go to a wedding? And all of a sudden, the conversation becomes easy. And it doesn't matter whether it's you're on an airplane, whether you're in a restaurant, whether you're at an event or in your office, just ask a question. Just a simple question. People will drive you and tell you where they want to go. And all you have to do is follow the breadcrumbs. So take a breath, ask a question, and follow the breadcrumbs.
Wonderful. Thank you, Natanya. I've had to learn that over the years, being more introverted. If I ask questions, I can usually keep the conversation going. All right, Michael, up next. Monica asks, please suggest some multi-generational fun games during the holidays. The ages range from early 20s to late 60s.
Wow. Okay. That's a good question. Thanks, Monica. We did something similar to that. And I go back to my old standbys of the favorites game. It kind of goes into what Natanya was talking about. Tell me your favorite memory of Aruba. You don't even know what's going on with that. They're going to tell you everything. So for multi-generational games, we did this during Zoom during COVID, trying to relate to people, and we turned it into story time. So it became, what's your favorite memory? what's your favorite memory on, and then you pick either a holiday or a birthday. It's just like table topics all over again. So your favorite memory, your favorite childhood memory, your favorite idea when you just had a bicycle. How old were you when you had that bicycle, and what did you do? So that's the favorites game, the favorite memory, because then it goes through all generations and everybody gets to learn. It's like, what was your social media at the time? Because nowadays we've got our phones, we've got Instagram, we've got Facebook, we've got MySpace. Is that still a thing? But that's the point. Times constantly change, and when you have multi-generational, that is a fabulous time to play the favorites game of your favorite memory, because you learn about them and the time, and before you know it, that spurs on additional questions. So that would be my suggestion. Play the favorites game, your favorite memory.
Great. I love that so much, Michael. All right, last question for you, Diane. Durton asks, what is a universal greeting that can be used in person? In some countries, they kiss when greeting, in some others, they shake hands, in others, they don't shake hands at all. What is your advice?
I would say do a little internet research or ask people from that country so that your greeting can be appropriate. Now, you may not be totally comfortable with their greeting, but at least you will not be surprised if you are greeted with a kiss and you don't do that in your culture. So do some research. I think in most cultures, you're safest if you don't immediately touch the person, because some cultures you don't touch. So I think smiling and making a little eye contact is always good, and saying hello, but I would do a little research.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Wonderful answers. Natanya, I'll turn it back over to you to provide some closing statements.
Very good. Thank you, Danielle. Look, Michael, Diane, this has been some seriously good conversation, and I'm so excited to have had the opportunity to spend the time with you. What 2, maybe 3 final tips can you leave with our audience today to help them with their holiday talk? Diane?
Sure. I would say before you go to an event, remember 3 things. Be prepared. Think about who's coming, who's hosting. Maybe have some conversation starters in your back pocket. Be present. Pay attention when people are talking. Have your phone off, and be a partner in conversation. Find some agreement and common ground and have a positive conversation. Those would be my tips. Be prepared, be present, and be a partner.
Love it, love it, love it. Thank you. Michael, what about you?
Well, I'll build upon what Diane mentioned. It's to be prepared for whatever your party is. And then for me, as far as the conversations, it's the favorites. Have your favorite joke, your favorite toast, your favorite question, your favorite memory ready to go. Be prepared for if you wanted to talk to somebody and you're socially awkward, you find something that you like about that person or the party, or you find interesting. It could be the food or the clothing. Say, that's a very interesting necklace that you have on, or I like your bracelet, or I see that you chose the cheesecake too. Again, I'm back to the food. Oh my goodness. But then you get to ask that question, what do you like about the cheesecake? Or what's the favorite cheesecake you've had? Where, is it the Cheesecake Factory? No, that's good. It's commercial, but so you have your favorites, favorite joke, toast, or question. And here's a favorite joke that I like to share because it's a pun, or nowadays they're called dad jokes. It's like, there's a bumblebee. He was lovesick, so he went home to his honey and nectar. That's really bad. Thanks for the comedy jokes or laughter. Be prepared.
That is so good. Look, again, I'm so grateful to have spent the time with the 2 of you. What I would suggest to you all is to be intentional. Be really intentional when you're headed to an event. Do you need to get to know your family better? What about when you go to a holiday event for your company? We talked about being prepared. I say be intentional. Even when you're there, watch your body language, watch what you say, be mindful of how you're showing up. The second thing is ask questions. Questions are so easy to ask, and it starts to break down and help you to ease into the conversation. And the last thing would be this: have fun. at the end of the day, that's all this is about, is having fun. And if you're not having fun, then well, maybe you need to leave, give yourself a little bit of grace, and just come back in the room and start over. Like, it's been wonderful to be with you. We wish you the very best as you create conversation during the holidays and get to talking. Back to you, Danielle.
Thank you again, Natanya, Michael, and Diane, for spending this time with us today. We truly appreciate your wisdom, insights, and tips. We will soon send the recording link of today's webinar to everyone who registered. Please feel free to share the link with friends and colleagues who you think will benefit from it. Thank you all for joining us, and we wish you a wonderful holiday season with lots of great holiday talk and conversation. Thank you.
Bye now.